Jerome, the silent castaway of Sandy Cove. Digby Neck, Nova Scotia, 1863. The air was thick with salt and mystery the day they found him. A nameless man, half dead and legless, washed up like driftwood on the rocky shore of Sandy Cove. The fishermen who spotted him from the cliffs thought he was another body claimed by the unforgiving Atlantic. But when they trudged through the jagged rocks, dragging his frail form from the icy water, they realized he wasn't just any castaway. This man was different. The sea had spared him for a darker fate. He was a phantom come to life. His face was gaunt, his cheeks sunken and his eyes wild with unspoken terror. His legs, or what remained of them, were stumps, cleanly severed just above the knees. No shipwreck was reported, no crew came searching for him. He was a man without a name, without a history. The fishermen hauled him to the closest house, the home of Isabel Power, the local widow who, out of pity and curiosity, took him in. She tried to get answers, but all he would ever say was one word:
Jerome.
It wasn't clear if that was his name, a place, or perhaps a ghost of his past. It didn't matter. The town had already started weaving their own sinister theories. Sandy Cove was small, and like all small places, secrets never stayed hidden for long. Rumors began to stir. Whispers followed Jerome everywhere. How could a man survive such an ordeal and have no memory of who he was? How could he have no legs, no scars of battle, and no explanation? Some said he had been a sailor caught smuggling opium, punished by pirates who took his legs as a warning to others. Others believed darker forces were at play, that Jerome had made a deal with something far older and more malevolent than men. There were stories of ghost ships and cursed vessels that roamed the Bay of Fundy, of sailors who never returned to land the same way they left it. Every night, Jerome's silence deepened the terror in Sandy Cove. The townsfolk began to speak of him as a bad omen, a harbinger of ill fortune. Livestock fell sick, children had nightmares, and the waves on the coast seemed to crash louder, angrier, as if something was trying to claw its way back from the depths. But Isabel wasn't afraid, at least not at first. She pitied the strange man with his haunted eyes, but soon even she began to sense that something was terribly wrong. One stormy night, as the wind howled and the rain lashed against the windows, there was a knock at the door. A tall man, draped in a black oilskin coat, stood in the shadows of Isabel's porch. His face was obscured by the brim of his hat, but his voice was steady, cutting through the storm like a blade.
"I've come for Jerome,"
he said. Isabel's blood turned to ice. No one knew who Jerome was or where he came from, except this stranger. The man pushed his way into the house before she could stop him. His presence was suffocating, the air in the room thickening as he approached Jerome, who lay motionless on a cot near the fire. The stranger knelt beside him, whispering in a language Isabel didn't recognize, guttural, harsh, like the sound of rocks grinding beneath the waves. Jerome's eyes shot open wide with fear. For the first time since he arrived, he tried to scream, but no sound came out. His face contorted in agony as the stranger's whispers grew louder, more frantic. Suddenly Jerome reached out, grabbing Isabel's arm with a strength she didn't know he had. His mouth twisted, and in a voice that wasn't his, he rasped a warning.
Do not let him take me back.
The stranger stood, his dark figure towering over both of them.
"He belongs to the sea now. You cannot save him."
In a desperate attempt to protect Jerome, Isabel grabbed the only weapon she could find, an iron poker from the fireplace, and swung at the stranger. But he was faster than any man should be. He caught her wrist mid-swing, twisting it until she dropped the poker with a clatter. The stranger's eyes flashed, and for the briefest moment she saw something inhuman behind them, something ancient and endless, like the dark depths of the ocean. With a flick of his hand, the stranger sent Isabel crashing to the floor. She lay there, dazed, as he turned back to Jerome, muttering that strange language again. Jerome's body convulsed, his back arching as if something inside him was being ripped out. Then, just as quickly as it began, it was over. Jerome lay still, his face pale, his breathing shallow. The stranger turned and walked out into the storm, disappearing as quickly as he had come. Isabel crawled to Jerome's side, her hands trembling, but it was too late. His eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, and his mouth was frozen in a silent scream. By morning, the storm had passed, but Jerome was gone. No trace of him remained, not even his body. All that was left were the faint imprints in the wet earth leading down to the shore, as if something had dragged him back into the sea. No one in Sandy Cove ever spoke of Jerome again, not publicly. But behind closed doors the whispers grew louder. Some said he was a man cursed by the sea, others believed he was never human at all. The fishermen claimed they could sometimes hear him screaming in the wind on stormy nights, his voice carried across the bay by the waves that had once spared him. But the truth of what happened to Jerome, or where he came from, was lost to the sea, just another secret buried beneath the dark waters of Digby Neck.